Hey, what's up, Street Talks? Eric Kim from the Eric Kim Street Photography blog. So, as a way to kick off the new release of Film Notes by Cindy A. Wynn, Eric Kim, and Haptic Press, I want to give y'all some practical, no bullshit advice on film photography. So, first things first. With film photography, it will make you a better photographer. Period. Let me give you the reasons why. When you shoot film photography, it's really going to make sure that you have skin in the game. Meaning, before you click the shutter, you actually had to pay money and time and resources before you make a photo. So you just appreciate the art of photography so much more. So you essentially don't take photos of things which are not important to you. So for example, I can guarantee once you start shooting film photography, you're gonna stop photographing your food or your lattes or whatever, because it's gonna cost you something. And so therefore, you end up just taking less photos of crap, and you just have a higher hit rate because you just work a lot harder to make a better image. I think shooting film photography makes you more grateful of photography in general, and just how fucking hard it is. I'm not saying that you should stop taking photos on your iPhone or whatever, your smartphone. I think that's really important too. I think it's about combining both lifestyles, combining film photography as well as your digital photography or your smartphone photography, whatever it may be. I also think that film photography, it's like if you want to write a letter to your mom on her birthday, rather than sending her a text message like, "Happy birthday, Mom," it's better that you write her a handwritten letter because it's a lot more meaningful and purposeful. The same thing is with film photography. Making photos on film, it is actually just a lot more personal and meaningful. And even now, like, I've noticed that aesthetically, my film photos have aged so much better than any of my digital photos, because any digital photo that I made from like 5 years ago, none of them has survived because whatever post-processing fad I was on shooting raw, like adding a vignette or too much sharpness or clarity or whatever, it just looks so ugly, and like they haven't aged very well at all. But the images I made on Kodak Tri-X or Kodak Portra 400 with Tri-X 400 film, I like to shoot it and push it to 1600, which adds more grain, contrast, and grit. And the photo just looks so aesthetically beautiful and timeless. And I think as photographers, we should endeavor to make images that will be good even 200 years from now. So shooting film photography, first of all, just period, aesthetically looks way more beautiful than digital photography. Digital photography will never look as good as film photography because film photography is organic, it's random, it's essentially it's light hitting a photovoltaic piece of paper. And when you're looking at images on negative, you're actually looking at the physical imprint that light made on the image. Whereas with digital photography, like on my Ricoh GR2 camera, I could add, VSCO presets or the Eric Kim free Lightroom presets to make it look like film, but it will never be film because it's a digital sensor just turns images into just ones and zeros. So know that there's always going to be limitations with digital photography. Ultimately, I think that the point of photography is just to express your soul and how you see the world. So it doesn't really matter if you shoot film or digital at the end of the day, to be honest, but I have found that for me personally, shooting film has just made me appreciate the art of photography much more, and I think the photos just look nicer. When it comes to film photography, the opposite of digital photography is that with film photography, it's always better to overexpose, make your photos brighter, than to make them darker. With digital photography, it's actually the opposite of the inverse. Digital photography, if you're shooting raw, it's always better to underexpose because you can always drag up the highlights, drag up the shadow details. Whereas with film, if you blow out it's pretty impossible to blow out your highlights in film, which is also awesome too. Is that, for example, I could shoot a photo on Tri-X 400 film, get it scanned digitally, open it up in Lightroom or Photoshop, and let's say the photo is like 5 stops too bright, and this has happened to me on accident. I'll just take the exposure or the highlights slider, just drag it to the left, and all the detail is there. It's pretty incredible. However, when I'm shooting film, if you underexpose or make the photos too dark, no matter what kind of Photoshop or whatever you do, you cannot bring out any details from the shadows. So with film photography, when in doubt, make your photos brighter than darker. Another practical tip with film photography is, I think it's better to shoot at f. So let me give you guys some sample settings. So assuming you shoot ISO 400 film, which is a good standard, keep your aperture of your camera at f8, and the only variable you have to change is your shutter speed. So practical examples: if you're shooting on a really bright sunny day at ISO 400 film, just keep your camera at f8 and change your shutter speed to 1,000th of a second. And the exposure should be pretty good on a bright sunny day. When you're photographing people indoors, shoot wide open. So let's say your lens goes to f2 or f2.8, put it at f2 or 2.8, and then your shutter speed is going to have to be really slow, probably like 15th of a second. So you cannot have camera shake, because any shutter speed I found in my experience under 1/30th of a second or slower than 1/30th of a second, there's going to be some sort of blur or shake if you don't have hands, or if you're like me and you drink too much coffee. If you're shooting outside and your subject's in the shade, generally 1/125th of a second or 1/60th of a second works good. But if you're in doubt, 1/60th of a second is better, because your photos will be brighter and you'll have a better exposure. And when you're shooting during sunrise or sunset, same thing, f8, ISO 400 film, 1/250th of a second is pretty much good settings. The reason why I think these settings are better than using 70-16 never really made sense to me. It's easier to just change your shutter speed and keep your aperture at f8, because f8 is a good aperture to use in street photography, because you have a lot of depth of field and you're more likely to get stuff in focus. Do not, when you're shooting film, try to shoot everything wide open. That's just for idiots. I think there's an over obsession with bokeh or getting blurry backgrounds too much nowadays. I think that's just it's silly, because I think a meaningful photo or a good photo has a good foreground, middle ground, and background, and it's a combination of these things which make, I think, a great photograph. I realize these headphones actually don't have a mic. That's not good. Anyways, so actually, I don't know why I have these headphones on. Anyways, so going back to film, I'm gonna make life easy for you. If you're shooting color film, use Kodak Portra 400. Best skin tones. Portra means Portra because Portra stands for portrait. So the red and the orange and the yellow tones look really, really nice for human skin. If you're on a budget, just buy the cheapest whatever film you can find at the drugstore or wherever you buy it. Generally, Kodak Gold is good because it's warmer. If you want more like cold, bluish tones, the Fujifilm is good. Black and white. Kodak Tri-X 400, industry standard, good grain, good contrast. Another good option if you don't have Tri-X, Ilford HP5. Also nice grainy and gritty. I think a little bit less contrasty. I prefer higher contrast, so I like Tri-X. Or check out my buddy Bellamy Hunt, aka Japan Camera Hunter. If you like super, super grainy, which is awesome, his JCH Street Pan 400, just go to japancameraHunter.com and tell him Eric sent you. Bellamy, give me a 10% cut. Also, when it comes to film photography, my recommendation is when you're starting off, start off with black and white film and learn how to develop film by yourself at home, because it's actually not that complicated. Just watch a YouTube video on how to develop black and white film. You do not need your own darkroom. All you need is a changing bag. So it's just a black bag, you stick your hands in it, you learn how to take things apart. And that's a good thing to learn. It just makes it more fun. But if you're just, if you're time poor but money rich, meaning you have disposable income but you don't have a lot of free time, my practical recommendation is just send to a lab, right? Just find a local lab. It's going to be expensive. Tell us, say, develop this, scan it for me, put on a CD or USB or Dropbox it to me, and look at the images. And use Adobe Lightroom to look through your images and just key or flag your favorite images and export them based on the images that you guys like. And also know that it's not cheating to use Photoshop or Lightroom to adjust your images in terms of the exposure, the brightness, the contrast, whatever it may be. Another big misconception about film photography is that you just want to take 1 or 2 photos of the scene. My practical recommendation is be very, very picky in terms of what you want to photograph. But once you see in a good scene, shoot the shit out of it. So, for example, I might walk around shooting film for a whole day, don't see nothing interesting, but once I do find something interesting, I'll shoot a whole reel of film, 36 photos on one scene to get the best photo of one scene rather than just take 1 or 2 photos of everything. So, so essentially with film photography, do not be afraid to take a shitload of photos, essentially. Also know that with color film, underexposed color film looks really ugly and nasty. So even a practical tip is use a flash with color film to saturate the colors and make it just look nicer. Black and white generally tends to look better even when lighting conditions are not so good. It's a barking dog outside. And if you're starting off film photography, do not go out and buy a film Leica. My recommendation is to just see if you can find a free film camera from your family, or even pick up one of those disposable cameras. Those are pretty cool. I think Ilford actually makes XP2 and HP5 disposable black and white film cameras, so just experiment with that. And if you're rich and you want to buy the best film camera that money could buy, either get the Leica MP, which is the camera I have. I got it used from JapanCameraHunter.com, aka Bellamy. I think brand new, the MP is around $5,000 US. He got it for me for used for $3,500 US. So I usually buy all my stuff used. Or the Leica M-A is pretty cool because it's just stripped to the minimum, no superfluous stuff. And yeah, or the best, and also the best, I think, just Leica lens that exists is probably the 35mm f2 Summicron, a spherical lens. A better budget option is the Leica 35 f2.4 Summa Rit, which is lighter and smaller, which is cool. Or the best bang for the buck Leica is probably the Leica M6. So I'd recommend don't buy shit on eBay because it's all going to be bad. Just go to JapanCameraHunter.com. Check out my buddy Bellamy Hunt. Send me an email, say Eric Kim sent you. And he charges more money for his services, but he'll end up saving you time and headache and stress because you know the shit you'll get is good shit. And yeah, and ultimately, just enjoy the process. If you want to buy camera film, check out my buddy Vishal. He runs camerafilmphoto.com. And pick up a copy of Film Notes, which is available at ericKimphotography.com/blog/shop, or just Google Eric Kim Film Notes and check it out. When they come up with more film photography tips, I'll share them with you guys. But ultimately, do not shoot film to be a hipster and to Instagram your cappuccino with your film camera, even though that's fun. Actually, no, it's okay. You can do that. Just do that. Just enjoy the process. Don't be like, oh, you know, I should film, you should digital, you're a wanker, whatever. But just do it because you enjoy it, it's fun, and do it for yourself. Sorry, I spit over the camera. All right. So until next time, shoot film, be happy, and see you on the streets. Peace out.